All right, good evening, everyone. It's Monday, November 10th at 6:30. We're here at the Oregon School District Innovation Center and calling this Oregon School District Board of Education meeting to order. Katie, please call the roll.
Ms. Bijak? Here. Dr. Bush? Here. Ms. Garrison? Yes. Mr. Hensel? Here. Dr. Lakuta? Here. Ms. Wright? Here. Mr. Pankratz?
Here. All right, we're all here. Board has a full quorum of 7 tonight, so good to see you all. Tonight, we'll go to proof of notice, which is here. Thank you, Katie, as always, for ensuring that our meetings are properly noticed. On the agenda tonight, we have our typical information items, including a special item tonight. We'll review our school community feedback from the outreach that was conducted for our new superintendent search. And under the action items, we just have one, which is the cancellation or consideration of cancellation of our second meeting in November and the second meeting in December. And then we have our typical discussion and informational items. And then we will convene the open session and we'll go into a work session for our cell phone policy update. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda as posted. Motion by Heather. Is there a second? Second by Mary. Katie, call the roll, please.
Ms. Garrison? Yes. Dr. Lakuta? Yes. Ms. Bijak? Yes. Dr. Bush? Yes. Mr. Hensel? Yes. Ms. Wright? Yes. Mr. Pankratz?
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. We have an approved agenda for tonight's meeting. Thank you all. First up on the agenda, we have our consent calendar. Is there any board member who would like any items removed from the consent calendar? I'll note that Nathan was not at our last meeting, so I assume you'll abstain from those meeting minutes. Any other removals? So we'll take a motion to approve the consent calendar. So moved. Motion by Anna. Is there a second? Second by Mary. Any further discussion? I will take this opportunity to thank our generous community members who've donated to this Oregon School District. We have a $4,000 donation to Netherwood Knoll from Abbott Charitable Foundation, a $5 donation from the Kimball family for the Overture Trip Fee Scholarship donation, $720.04 from the school toolbox, and that was for fundraising collected on behalf of OMS during an online sale. We have $25 from Heather Kleist, $5 from Elena Schinderly, and $25 from Rachel Glaza, all for food service balances. We have a $1,000 donation to Forest Edge for Bala V sets for classrooms, and that's coming from the Healthy Classrooms Foundation. And then we have a donation of $11,025 from the Oregon PTO, and that is to be divided to benefit RCI classroom and building needs. So some very generous donations as always, and we very much appreciate those community donations. Katie, could you please call the roll to approve the consent calendar?
Ms. Bijak? Yes. Dr. Lakuta? Yes. Dr. Bush? Yes. Ms. Garrison? Yes. Mr. Hensel? Ms. Wright? Yes. Mr. Pankratz?
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you for approving the consent calendar. We will move now to informational items, and we'll start with our superintendent's report and student highlights. Dr. Bergstrom.
Thank you. I'm just going to start with one fun highlight that's really quite a rite of passage for Oregon middle schoolers, and that's our 8th grade community service project. So last week, these fantastic kids took to the streets of Oregon to rake leaves for our neighbors. It's really a terrific way for kids to practice teamwork, get some exercise, and have some fun while performing a really important service for the community. We're always really proud of our 8th graders when they take part in this. So thanks to our amazing educators for organizing this impactful community service event and student experience. And we'll have a lot more at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. Awesome. Next up, public comment. Is there anyone here this evening who would like to speak for public comment? Anyone here for public comment? One more time, any public comment? All right, seeing none, moving to the OEA report. Any report this evening? No, we have attendance, but no report. Thank you. And next up, student report. Violet, you may turn on your mic and share your report.
Hi everyone, I'm Violet Evans. I'm a junior at Oregon High School, and I'm going to talk about some of the things going on recently. The biggest upcoming event is the annual school play. This year, the high school is putting on a production of Stage Door. Everyone in it is working very hard. I have a lot of friends who are in it. They're missing some time to themselves this week, definitely. Staying till 10 p.m., so they're still here. But the show is this weekend and Friday night. Yeah, and I think it's going to be really, really great. As for clubs, some clubs that have started again this year, Foodie Friends, which is a club that started last year. It is a club that mainly focuses on trying new foods from around the world, so people will share foods that they enjoy with other people. And it's just a great opportunity to bond and try some interesting dishes. And then another club that started up again this year is Pros, which is a club that I founded. It is the high school's creative writing club. That's pros as in writing, and then pros as in professionals. And one of our biggest things we're working on right now is preparation for a writing contest among the members of the club. So submissions aren't due for a while, but they're working on those and they're very excited. And then another club that has things going on is ECOS. Upcoming is the Youth Climate Conference at Madison College. And I will be going there along with some other ECOS members. And that will be really great, I think. Some other events that are going on. The OHS Symphony Orchestra recently had a Halloween concert. That is a entirely student-led group with orchestra and band members. And preparations for the spring concert are underway. Yeah, and as for sports, cross country, Pavel Vorontsov and Kato Mikkelsen competed very well at the WIAA state event in Wisconsin Rapids. And then for boys soccer, they advanced to the sectional semifinal, but they did unfortunately fall to a very tough Middleton squad. And for girls swimming, they won the conference championship and took third place as a team last weekend at the sectional meet. The team now sends 13 entries forward to the WIAA state swim meet this Saturday at Waukesha North. Yeah, and that's all that's going on right now.
Thank you, Violet. Great report. Thanks for joining us tonight. All right, we are now moving on to we're still under information items number 5. We have the review of our school community feedback regarding qualifications for a new superintendent. So I'll invite our consultant, Mr. Dennis Paulai from McPherson and Jacobson, to join us. You can join us at the table and switch on the mic. Katie's got your PowerPoint queued up here, so great to see you again, Dennis, and we'll turn it over to you to provide an update.
Great. Okay. You don't want me to take it out. I used to be a disc jockey, so I get very comfortable with a microphone in my hand. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the administrative team. Good to see you again. I think it was actually a week ago today. We did 2 stakeholder meetings virtually. And I will say, Gina took copious notes. So in that 48-page report that that I'm sure you spent part of your weekend just reviewing that thoroughly, I didn't take any notes. Gina did a great job. And then on Tuesday, we met with, I think, a handful of groups in person. And then we did another virtual meeting on Wednesday. So we certainly had many opportunities for people to participate and provide their feedback. The survey closed November 4th. I'm still waiting. I was hoping to have it on Friday, and I anticipate getting the report summary tomorrow. So as soon as I get the survey summary, then I will forward that on to all of you. But tonight we'll focus on the stakeholder groups. That's me. By the way, Violet, Mrs. Pauley would love to join the Food Frenzy group. That's about the only channel we really need to pay for is the Food Network. So here on your screen, you can see these are the different engagement sessions that we held. So we started off on Monday. We had a staff group and I believe it was a community group on Monday, the two virtual ones. And then my Tuesday morning, once I realized that the central office wasn't where I remembered it when I lived here, I walked. I parked into the Gallagher building or right across. Beautiful facility, but I had to go repark, and then I found the administrative team. So that's how we led the day off, and then we ended later that evening right here in this room. So these are the different groups that we ended up speaking to, and we had 120 people participate, and we really enjoyed all of the opportunities. And if I had to pick a favorite, nothing personal administrative team, but the student group was awesome. We had 2 student meetings in here, and the first one, we had a group of invited students, so it was a smaller group. And then the second group was we had a lot of pizza left, and some kids just heard that there's free pizza, so they really were coming in for pizza. And we had empty seats at the table, so we told them to sit down, and we really had wonderful feedback. Honestly, I said to Gina, I couldn't believe how engaging the kids were. I mean, they were really well versed in the issues going on, not only within the community and the school district, but just on a broader scale as well. We won't talk about the cell phone policy. They did. But anyways, that's forthcoming. All right, so the 4 questions, and this was in the report, was really the first question was just tell us what's great about this community and the surrounding area. We kind of started out broad, and then the next question was focusing on the district, but I don't think there was any group that started out the first question without quickly going to the school district. So clearly the school district is the central focus of this community and the surrounding area, and people just spoke unbelievably highly of it, which didn't surprise me. The third question was, now we were just asking them to take a broader look of when a new superintendent is appointed, what are they going to need on their radar right away? What are things they're going to walk right into that Leslie will probably be happy to hand off the baton to them and say, this was mine, it's now yours. You know, what are those challenges or even opportunities that they'll be walking into? And then the fourth question was just simply, what are the kind of what we did with the board in phase 1 meeting is, what are the attributes and characteristics that you think will be necessary for the next superintendent to succeed? And then here's the responses. So I won't go through all of this. I'll kind of give you a high-level view because you had an opportunity to see this. But community in the surrounding area, it quickly came back to, and you can see it in here, the third bullet. Even though it's the third bullet, it doesn't represent that anything other than that's just where it got placed in here. Every group right away went to the schools, and some of the groups I'd have to remind them, no, this is just about Oregon and the surrounding area, because they quickly wanted to come and talk about how wonderful just the staff is from everyone, the board, the administrative team, the staff, just people spoke very highly. A lot of community pride. People really spoke about the fact that we're still a small town. We still have some of that rural feel, but we're not. We're located in an area where we're very close to Madison. We're not that far from the Milwaukee area, even within Chicago. So the location is, we have the commitment in that small town feel, yet we really have all the advantages of the big city because we're located so close. So a lot of pride with that. Very many opportunities for people to be involved. And people really appreciate that really the level of my involvement is limited to my time to want to be involved. That, no one said anything negative about not being able to find ways to be participating. The growth and diversity, just people saw that as a real positive to the community, and then just the progressive mindset, probably being this close, the Dane County area being close to a university. We have the capital, so we have state government here. Just, it is a very progressive area. And then just very active and a healthy lifestyle. There's walking paths, bike paths in the area. There's just a lot to do. So people spoke very highly of the community once we could keep them on the community and somewhat away from the school district, which we'll go to next. School district, wow, and then we could probably come up with a lot more themes than what we had here, but just the commitment and the opportunities to students, the commitment of staff to go out of their way and do whatever it takes for every child to feel connected and succeed here. And that goes from Leslie, from you, all the way throughout the entire organization. They loved how visible you are at events and how visible the administrative team is at events, and they participate. The kids really could tell the staff care about us because they show up at events and they ask about us. They go out of their way to help us. They give up their lunch periods for us. So just really strong about the staff. It kind of kept coming back a lot to the staff and opportunities, but then we go back to, but the opportunities are because the staff advocate for us. And very much open to, if students come forth and they have an idea, they don't feel like barriers are going to go up or hurdles. They feel like people are going to be very supportive, so they're very comfortable coming forth. Very collaborative, supportive. What we heard from staff is that, they like the relationship with the administrative team, and the board feels very collegial, very collaborative. We're partners in this. I didn't hear anything that was adversarial at all. If anything, the exact opposite. And I think that's probably some of that anxiety and angst people have with replacing someone like you, Leslie, is you're really good. And so it's really scary that, wow, we know what we're losing, and I hope we can get somebody who is equally as good. And that's scary. So that's on people's mind. Community engagement, people felt I think your past referendums are just an example of the support of the community, but not just that. Troy, you read off the different gifts that people give, and I imagine you do that at every board meeting because you have a community that is always going to open the purse strings for students. So Food Frenzy Club, I bet you there's people out there who also are food frenzies and would love to support the club and give you kids more exposure and opportunities. I was really excited to learn the chocolate caper is still around. That's one of my favorite spots. Access to just broader resources. You have a very connected staff. You've got the university close by, so there's just really not just the resources that are available right here in Oregon, but in a broader context of just being, again, in this area, the university, a lot of just professional companies and organizations around here that people felt very much connected to and were very supportive of the school district. And financial stability, that's really a positive. I don't hear that in all districts I go to, but we know that the biennial budgets are every 2 years. We really don't know what we're going to have, but from a broader network, Oregon is very healthy financially, and you're really positioned very well. So for the new superintendent coming in, that's not one of the challenges directly related to Oregon to have to deal with right away. I mean, any superintendent walking in any role is going to deal with the state budget. They're going to deal with the state funding formula. They're going to deal with, federal grants, all of that. But you're in a position of what we in the world of superintendents would say is very financially healthy. You're very stable. You have stable enrollment, even though I know, Andy, you said I think we're down 9 students. In our world, that's flat. If we're up 9 students, we don't say we're growing. We say we're flat, right? So that we're kind of in that window. And then just last, very safe and welcoming. In our second student group, we had some students that came from other communities that really were praising how welcome they felt coming here, because they came from locations that they didn't feel that same warmth and welcomeness that they felt when they came here. So very positives about the school district. Challenges, I think that's where we're at, yeah. School funding and fiscal management, but not really directly related to here as much as, and this is where the kids were really, I was impressed with how knowledgeable and versed they were about state funding. Sometimes I guess that's some talk at the dinner table, I would imagine. But you know, I think it certainly is evident that throughout the state and really nationally, just the uncertainty of school funding, and it's very difficult. You know, here I've always thought, and Andy, you can appreciate this. Wow, did you realize when we typically certify the levy, we're 5 months into our budget? So, you know, it puts the board in a position that's going to be really difficult to not certify the levy since we've spent half of the year already. Staffing and retention, that was definitely identified, but not specific to Oregon as much as that's on everybody's radar. But it's still a concern here because you have really strong people. But I think people recognize it's also on the slide before, the support that they're receiving, you know, the administrative team, the support of new ideas, students recognizing the support of their staff. Just that type of culture is what keeps people. And I think so people weren't like, the retention wasn't necessarily about, you know, people are leaving as much as how are we retaining the great people that we have. And because it's a larger issue, it does trickle down into the system. I don't look at the Oregon School District as I've seen other districts that have a lot of retention concerns. I don't see that here. But I think anytime we, just in this climate, we have a smaller workforce, and we have higher needs, and it's a tough profession to come into. So that doesn't surprise me. Growth in the facility challenges, that's part of being in Dane County, I think. You go to the north, you've got a lot of development going on there. When we met with the municipality individuals, you know, I asked them, I said, what type of growth is platted right now? Not just current subdivisions going in, but what's on the horizon? Because if as a new superintendent coming in here, I can see what's being developed now, but what I can't see is what you're talking about is going to be developed, because that's part of our strategy of 5 years from now, we're going to be talking about another school in this location because there's 3 subdivisions platted. That's the type of conversations that we were having with the municipal leaders, and so that is part of some of the challenges is there is continued growth. And the interesting thing with that continued growth is it doesn't always equate to students every home. And in fact, typically the multiplier is for every home, it's about 0.8 students. So, you know, and then that's just communicating and with the community about that too. Equity, inclusion, and diversity, those were just brought up as just challenges, but not as, you know, it's here because you're growing rapidly to a certain degree, and your demographic is changing a little bit. But I think the conversation was more just statewide and globally too, because that is what the conversation is at a national level. Our issues and just challenges with that. And then lastly, just behavioral, the technology. I could probably target that to the cell phone, but actually the kids were really good about it. They felt like staff was very good about, you know, introducing that transition. I kind of foreshadowed for them, just plan on it changing a little bit once it becomes law. But they were very well versed. It's going to become law. There was no blaming. There was no frustration. I was impressed with how, yep, okay. Some are actually advocates of it because they do feel like it's distracting, and it was kind of nice to have, now you have a law that makes it easier for staff to implement something that the kids, I think, in general, probably thought was pretty advantageous to them and good for the school. Behavioral, that wasn't really anything big and specific as much as we experience growth and change in the community, you're just going to have diverse opinions coming in, and that could potentially create those concerns, but it wasn't born out of the fact that students or staff or the community members felt like it's necessarily here now. And then lastly, the characteristics. I won't go through all those, but really, I think somebody, I'll start out by just saying, somebody who's very personable, Leslie, I mean, I'll kind of mimic some of the attributes that we heard about you, is just somebody who genuinely cares about people, the students, the staff, somebody who truly is fighting for the highest good of everybody in the organization, no matter what your role is. Somebody who's visionary, somebody who can be decisive, but a partner, somebody who's collaborative, but does have a vision and wants to move what's already a great district forward and to even higher levels. And really, I think the emotional intelligence, the authenticity came up quite a bit. And I think that just simply meant you can tell when somebody's trying to really be personal or when somebody really is being personable and cares. And I think, lastly, that's an attribute that you clearly have that we heard, and it's something that people admire and appreciate with you. And I think they really want to see that in their next superintendent as well. Is somebody who, when they tell me you care about me, you genuinely do it and you back it up with your behavior. And then just recognizing, because we're in Dane County, the political issues that we deal with, the ability to, you're going to need to talk to many different constituents and different stakeholder groups of different varying interests and different perspectives. And somebody who can just navigate that landscape and do it in a way of advocacy for the school district, but respect for everybody's point of view. And then kind of the overall strengths of the district, just a lot with high quality academics. People were really praising that in all the groups that we talked to, and just opportunities for students. Skilled collaborative staff, we heard that over and over and over. You have a highly educated staff, and people recognize and appreciate that. That was very evident. Very supportive community. The students talked about whenever we need something, staff will support us and advocate for us, and the community will be there to support us. And I think, Troy, what you read tonight's a perfect example. What I find in communities like Oregon is if you ask, people are going to, the only probably requests that go unmet are the ones that haven't been requested to somebody yet, right? You're just thinking about it. So very supportive community, and then people recognize, and this is a credit to you, I don't hear this all the time, but they recognized that really all this is a result of the support of the board. You're in positions where I doubt if you get too many letters of thanks or too many phone calls that say, hey, that was a good decision tonight, just wanted to call you and let you know. But I bet you get calls when somebody doesn't appreciate a vote that you made or a decision that you or a stance that you took. But I will tell you, in our stakeholder groups, every group, people recognize, one, they don't want to sit in your seat. Though I did see some students who could be future board members. I said that to Gina, like, wow, we have like a lot of future board members in that group. But you have people who recognize the challenges that you have taken on in public service, and that they really felt like the board is a very supportive board and very much advocate for the community, and that the decisions you're making are very good and healthy for the community. And I was just going to say, the size. People love this size because you can get into the buildings. Right, Leslie? You can know kids when you're in a district this size. If you go to Madison, it's impossible. You have 52 administrators and 52 different schools. It's really hard to get into those buildings. Here, you're kind of in that sweet spot, but you're growing into where it gets harder. But people really recognize the size and appreciated the advantages of having a Division II size school. And then I think we had some immediate challenges. Again, funding and fiscal management, not like anything directly here as much as just it's got to be on the radar because we hear about it. And any time we have a gubernatorial election, we don't know the direction that's going to take us in the next biennial budget. So that's just probably always going to be something that surfaces. Staffing and retention, we talked about that. That really revolved around how do we keep the great staff that we have, and how do we continue to draw in strong people. Student needs, that really was the social and emotional as well as the academic needs of students. And again, none of these are born out of things that we heard that need to be addressed as much as just we asked the question, what do you think are going to be challenges that the superintendent should be aware of? And so that's kind of where those are coming from. And then growth in facilities. Just knowing that you are a growing community, knowing that as you grow, it puts a burden on the different facilities that you have. So that's kind of like I guess like 30,000 feet, and we were kind of coming down, but you didn't have to put your tray tables up yet. We didn't get that low. But we did come down a little bit from cruising altitude. So I think the last slide is, what are your questions?
All right, board members, any questions for Dennis? Oh, go ahead, Leslie.
Hi, Dennis. I'm wondering, when you talked about talking with municipal leaders, what communities did you speak with?
And Gina, you'll have to help me. Fitchburg, we had the police chief, the village, the city manager. I'm not quite sure of titles here. And then Oregon, we had representation from the city government and police. Did we?
Municipal judge with Oregon.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Similarly, what kind of turnout did you have for your community sessions, virtual and the in-person one as well, right? You had the two different ones. What did you have for counts?
Community ones were smaller. I think we had, I don't know, 15-ish? Would that be about right? No, we did one at the library, beautiful library, by the way. I used to run back there. I remember when it was going up, I thought that was the school. So, oh, that's the library. It's really pretty. I think we had about a half dozen at that group, and probably about 15.
That's good. And then your the school-based ones, did you involve any of the student clubs or student leaders, or was it just kind of an open call for any student who wanted to stop in?
No,
What was the structure and the approach?
Ms. Owicki, the high school principal, had student services nominate or recommend kids to be invited because we wanted a cross-section of kids from the high school community. And then, as Mr. Polly said, then we had other kids that joined us. And it was
Liked
great.
pizza. Yeah, very good. Okay, awesome. Appreciate the extra
we
context.
had one
Thank you.
student who came in, and he's kind of a smart aleck at first, and he contributed so much by the end. Like, once he kind of got warmed up, like he honestly had no idea what he was walking into. Just he really was coming in for pizza, but he had a real cute personality, didn't he? And so, but once he started sharing, here's one thing he said is, for the administrative, he said, and we talked about this afterwards, when I know the adults in my school like me, I work harder for them. And even though we say, well, of course that's true, right? But to hear a high school student, a sophomore, say that in front of a group of peers was really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, food usually brings people in. It's
Yeah.
always a good tactic. So Dennis, just kind of next steps.
Yep.
The posting closes or applications are due by the 16th, which
Correct.
is Sunday, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then the board gets back together next Wednesday when we
Yes.
will start to review applicants and narrow the list for interviews.
Correct.
So,
So I'll be back here a week from Wednesday night, and then at that point we'll go through the applicants, not one by one, but I will be sharing kind of here's a group that I don't think their credentials really fit what we heard in the stakeholder groups and what we talked about. Here's a group that I have vetted and would be strong for the board to consider, and then we'll see if there's some kind of in the middle. There's not always people in the middle. It's kind of like, yep, this would be a good group, and no, or sometimes there are, like, it really depends. We might have 5 really strong candidates, but if the board says we would like to bring in 7 in round 1, okay, well then we go to that middle pile. But that's what we'll discuss next week. We'll also talk about what does that first round look like, and then I'll come with some questions that you may want to consider, and I'll link them to the posting vacancy. You know, what the board identified in that phase 1 meeting is these are the priorities that we really want to focus on, because that's what we built the whole vacancy posting on. I'll bring some draft questions that directly focus on those. And we'll talk about how does round 1 look different from round 2. So that'll be what we talk about next Wednesday.
Great.
And then as soon as I get those survey results, I will forward that report to the board.
Great. Any other questions from the board? Great. Well, thanks again for coming,
You
Dennis.
bet.
Excellent presentation.
Thank
Really
you.
great to hear from you, and look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Have
you.
a good night.
All right, next up we have our action item. This is consideration of canceling our November 24th meeting and our December 22nd meeting. So a little background here. November 24th, 2 weeks from tonight, that is the week of Thanksgiving. So two pieces of rationale on considering canceling. Number one is some of us will be out of town that week. And number two is that we have a lot of meetings coming up with the superintendent selection process, and would love to give you all a break from a Monday night. Leslie and I have consulted, and we don't have any pressing action items that need to be covered at that meeting, so we are very comfortable in canceling. And then December 22nd is the week of the holiday break, so that the first Monday, and typically when we do not have school, we would cancel our board meetings, but we do need a board action to do so. So with that, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion to cancel the November 24th and December 22nd board meetings.
Motion by Mary. Is there a second? Second by Nathan. Any further discussion? Katie, I'll have you call the roll.
Dr. Lakuta?
Yes.
Mr. Hensel?
Yes.
Ms. Bijak?
Yes.
Dr. Bush?
Yes.
Ms. Garrison?
Yes.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. We will not have the second meetings of this month and next month. Next up, we have discussion items, committee reports. We'll start with vision steering. Anna, is there an update from last time?
Well, we just canceled our board meeting on the 24th, but we are planning to hold a vision steering committee meeting on the 24th, starting at 5:15. I believe that still works for our policy committee, or excuse me, vision steering committee members, and so the intent is for us to hold that meeting on the 24th. And we did have a meeting earlier in October, right? It's November? Yeah. And we talked about facilities, right? So we talked about, got an update on Splash Pad, Worth Woods, and the Donaldson property. So the meeting in November will be looking at other strategic discussion regarding schools in the area. Thanks.
Great, thanks Anna. And for policy, Mary.
Yeah, we have not had a policy meeting since our last board meeting, and the next meeting is a week from tonight at 5:30 in the district meeting room.
All right, thank you. Do we have an agenda yet?
Know what you want to call it.
We do have an agenda item. It'll be our proposed post-retirement benefit.
Yes.
That would be a new benefit for non-legacy employees. And so there will be a lot of information to digest at that meeting. So Andy and I will be presenting that.
Great, thank you, Gina.
And in fact, if I can follow up on that,
Please.
I think the goal is to get the data for that posted sooner rather than later, so that, oh, it is out, okay. So that the board can start looking at the numbers. As
Yes.
Gina mentioned, there's a lot to
Yes.
digest.
Yep, thanks for raising that, and that was in our packet from last Friday, so. Okay, moving on, we are at information items, visioning and strategic planning, and teaching and learning update. I'll turn it over to Dr. Bergstrom.
Thank you. And tonight you'll be hearing the third part of our 24-25 update, where our 4K program and Netherwood and Brooklyn spoke, and now it is a Prairie View and Forest Edge. They'll be talking about the results of 24-25 and looking forward to this year and what the things they're doing to meet our goals. So I would like to invite them to come up. I think they're going to have to bring a chair or two, and then we'll begin that presentation.
She picked a chair that matched my outfit. I appreciate that. See, blue one. Why don't you go?
All right, thank you. So before Carrie and Don begin, we'll just sort of walk through the things that we always use to ground ourselves when we're about to talk about our students and their learning experiences and what we're doing to continue to move them forward on their learning journey. And the first thing, of course, is we're always staying grounded in our mission. And the best way to think about what are we trying to do is to think about the amazing young people who walk across the stage and shake your hand and get their diploma from us. And the idea that in pursuit of that mission, everything we do must be aligned with our values. And I think you saw an excellent representation of that tonight when Mr. Pauly shared what the community considered to be its strengths. And then as we do that, what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to nurture, to cultivate the character and culture, competency, critical and creative thinking, and community, the value of community within our students. And that starts from the very beginning. And so you'll certainly hear a lot about all of those things from Carrie and from Dawn. And then everything that they talk about tonight are really in service of the board's broader priorities and the OSD goals that come from those priorities, particularly goals 1 and 2 related to academic achievement and increased learning readiness, which that could be both physical and emotional. You'll hear a lot about that from the two of them. And then just as a refresher, what our goals were last year, because they're going to be reporting data on that. And then you had Anna Seidenstricker spend quite a bit of time 2 weeks ago on what our shared key strategies were. You'll hear a little bit about all of those things again tonight because, based on the title, they are the strategies that are common to all of our buildings. So now we will start with Prairie View Elementary, and I'll hand it over to Don Goltz.
All right. We are very excited to talk about our schools tonight. We learned a lot about the shared strategies in the other elementary schools. We're going to continue that today, knowing that we have been really consistent with our work K-6. You can see that we have great learners on the screen. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the pictures as we go through some of our academic and SEL goals from last year. Specifically talking about Prairie View, one of the things that we kicked off last summer was our learning targets. So when we started the 24-25 school year, we really talked about that instructional clarity, and Prairie View as a team decided we really wanted to focus on learning targets. What exactly is that learning target that we want the students to know? How do we unpack those learning targets during the lesson? How do we use technology to assist us with those learning targets? So we spent a lot of time providing professional development to teachers that summer and into the fall, and it was awesome. We were able to see great growth from our first walkthrough to just our second walkthrough. We had 23% of teachers fluently using learning targets in their classroom. When we did the middle of the year walkthrough, we are up to 50% of teachers using those learning targets. And just this fall, we were up to 67% of teachers fluently using those learning targets. So it was great to see growth in that. In the middle of the year, when we did our second walkthroughs for instructional clarity, we added a question. We asked students, explain what you're learning, or how does it connect to other things that you're learning, and why are you learning it? This was very interesting for our walkthrough team. Some students said, because I'm in the classroom and my teacher said I'm supposed to. Some students were really able to connect it to other subjects or to other lessons that they had, but it really made our teacher teams interested on how do we talk about relevance with kids? How do our kids really know what we're learning, and how do we tie that into other experiences? So we did a lot of professional development kind of in the middle of the year using the Teacher Clarity Playbook, which is a resource that our PLC Plus, Corwin, also publishes. We also found that our school perception survey, we have a low score in the number of students who can relate what they're learning to other work. And so we thought it would be great to use that data to also inform our practices. We saw a great increase in our relevance. And again, this fall, when we added that question, it wasn't where we wanted to be, but we think the more kids are learning this school year, they'll be able to connect it more to their learning from this fall. Another thing that we worked on a lot at Prairie View was Act 20. We talked a lot about that last year. I know John and Darcy have talked about that. But what we really focused on as a building was our progress monitoring. So in past years at Prairie View, we spent a lot of time on data. People love to call me Data Dawn. And we would spend a lot of time looking at data the beginning, middle, and end of the year, and not always every few weeks. So what Act 20 made us do was really dive into that progress monitoring. Students were progress monitored once a week if they were on a PRP, and our teams then in those PLCs were able to actually dive into that data and look at our students' trend lines. Those students that were getting the extra instruction from the reading interventionist or from their homeroom teacher, we were able to dive in and see, were those students responding to the interventions we were providing? Or were they not responding? Or were there some trend lines that were questionable and we needed to take a closer look at that, or provide that student more time in the intervention? But it also made us switch some interventions for students when we saw that those trend lines were not the direction we wanted them to go. We also looked at things like attendance. Were some of our students late to school and were missing that intervention? That was one case that we had to then change the intervention time. And we also looked at SEL supports. What type of supports were our students not getting that they maybe needed to help them be successful in reading? One other area of EL that we continue to love is making that learning public, the students making their learning public. I think I talked last year about our Bird Bonanza that our first grade students did. This year, our third grade, in their Exploring Literary Classics, learned about Peter Pan, the classic version of Peter Pan, and third graders ended up putting on a play for caregivers and other students. We used the Little Theater, which is very underused. If you've never seen it at Prairie View, stop by. It's a really great little theater for our students. But they were able to put on a play and really what they learned in their EL module, be able to perform on the stage. That was great to be able to see. One area that we continue to always focus on is that SEL focus. And this is probably one of our favorite things of our PBIS team at Prairie View, is creating a theme for the year. Last year, with the help of Dan Hilgardner, we created the theme Mission Possible. We've had possum, we've had all different takes on kind of awesome or possum, but Mission Possum really tied in our habits of character from our EL curriculum, such as becoming effective learners, becoming ethical people, and contributing to a better world. So each week, students were given a mission, and it was on our announcements. We had some in our cafeteria. They could move a little card if they accepted the mission. And for example, November was empathy, was our mission, and these were some of the missions of the month. Make eye contact and listen attentively when someone is speaking to you. Sit with someone new at lunch and get to know them. Thank someone who has helped you this week, or play with a new classmate at recess. So every month we had a different theme, and it was great. And we even had the teachers participate, and we had goals for the teachers as well. Here comes the data. When we looked at Prairie View data, we could see that we have continued to grow when we look at kind of that forward assessment. And it really shows that we continue to have strength in how our curriculum is aligning with those instructions and the state standards. Our forward scores improved quite a bit for our 4th grade learners this past year, which was great to be able to see. One of the things that I think Anna and Lindsay talked about were the gaps that they saw between some of our subgroups in our data. And we see some of those same subgroups at Prairie View. Our students who access IEPs, we had about a 7% point difference between the number of students and that 75 that weren't proficient out of our whole school. We are sad to see that have a gap, but we made great gains because there was about a 23% difference the year before. So from going from 23% to only having that 7% gap was great. Students who access free and reduced meals, this continues to be our largest gap. We made great gains from the fall to the end of the year, but still not enough to be able to close that gap. When we look at our number of students who access free and reduced meals, we were at about 18% last year. We're up to 23% this year. So that is a number that's continuing to grow. And so our school has really spent a lot of time on thinking about how we can meet the basic needs of our learners in the classroom and when they come to school. Our students who are what we'll say is ELL or multilingual continues to show a gap, about 6%. We have made some great changes in this area, and I'll be excited to talk about those in just a little bit after I share about the SEL data. We've got some new things happening at Prairie View in the area of our multilingual learners that we think will really close that gap. Again, just a little bit looking at our trend lines, we're pretty kind of stationary there between our forward and STAR. We're continuing to maintain that STAR reading. It's the results of that gap have kind of moved a little bit, but we've had strong reading proficiency for forward over the last 2 years. Looking at our SEL data, one of the areas that we fell is in the school safety. And so I looked into this question to see what exactly was that school safety. And one area where we really showed a 26% drop in was students feeling they were saw disrespectful students to students. And so we're planning to dive in a little bit more to that. It was up now in the fall. We retook this panorama survey, but really trying to find some more data on where is this happening? Is this happening in the classroom that students are being disrespectful? Is it happening out on the playground, in the lunchroom? Our PBIS team is going to dive a little bit more into that. One of the things that made us really excited was our emotion regulation numbers going up by 7. That was our goal for last year, really students being able to identify their emotions, what to do if they are in that red zone, yellow zone, or blue zone. So we spent a lot of time last year, so we were really excited to see that going up. When we talk about moving forward, we have some really excited things that we're going to continue to work on. We're still going to continue to, work on those learning targets, making sure that teachers are fluently using those. But we're also going to look at success criteria. And so our leadership team is doing a book study. And it's on the same, that Corwin company that created the other, the PLC Plus and the instructional one that we used. We're going to do a deep dive into that, but really thinking about what does success look like? How do students know if they have learned it? And there's a whole bunch of ways that maybe teachers aren't using that they'll be able to start using more in their classroom. So we're really excited about that. Leadership team is doing the learning now, and we're presenting to staff in January. And so that second semester will really be a push for success criteria. When we look at our Elevate group of learners, we are really thinking about what are our instructional practices that can help us really close that gap. When we look at Forest Edge data from the last year or two, they have really made great gains in closing of the gap with their multilingual students. They have done a different model than us, and so we decided, you know what, we're not going to wait. We're going to start our new model this year. And so our students that are proficient in Spanish, what we'll call our heritage learners, instead of pulling those students out and being taught Spanish literacy instruction instead of going to world language, they're actually having our Heritage Spanish teacher pushing into classrooms. So students are learning more Spanish, which is great when we have a world language program to be able to have more Spanish into classrooms, but pushing into more, helping those students feel that sense of belonging in the classroom, having more vocabulary in Spanish. And then our multilingual teacher, which is like an ELL teacher, or English as like a second language teacher, is also pushing into classrooms more instead of doing a pullout. So we're really, really excited. It's been great. It's been a shift for our teachers, but they have been really open and willing to be able to just jump in and do the hard work right away and kind of fly the plane as we're building it, but it's been really good so far. Diving more into those PLC questions, one of the questions that I think we've all talked about is not getting to is that who benefited and who did not. And so our leadership team this summer spent time creating a new PLC template that really has that question at the forefront and not always having that be the fifth question during our PLCs. We're really never going to move that needle if we never get to that who benefited and who did not. So we are really working on getting that right away on the table with teams and not waiting for the second or third PLC for a set of data. And lastly, we are shifting from emotion regulation, which has been our goal for, probably 4 or 5 years, to sense of belonging. When you think about a sense of belonging, it really sets the conditions for literacy success. And so we really, we know that it doesn't replace good instruction, but it makes our instruction more effective because our learners who feel more connected, they're ready to learn, they're ready to take those risks and really persist through that curriculum when it gets really hard. When that reading gets hard, they know that we believe in them and they have a place to belong and can do it. We've done so many things. Again, that PBIS team who loves to create themes. Our theme this year is Together We Shine. We have our staff shirts this year have, hey, Dear Panther behind me, your paw belongs at PVE. So we started this year with our staff shirts tying in sense of belonging. We had a great back to school bash, which we've done for several years, but provided food. And Jordan Hellberger and I, our admin intern, cooked over 400 hot dogs. And so we had probably 430 people come to our back to school night in 1 hour. It was awesome to see the turnout that we had. Food definitely drew people in. And so we're really excited to do another event this spring. We continue to do our POP groups, which are mixed grade level groups once a month. And we continue to have school assemblies. We had an awesome kickoff assembly for homecoming. We had the high school cheer team, dance team, football players all in to do kind of like we all belong in Oregon assembly. We'll continue to look at our data, that SEL K2 check-in and panorama, and looking at those specific questions about sense of belonging. And our next goal is to really start to collect some street data of those students who don't feel like they belong. Maybe why is that? Is it all the time? Is it certain, like, are you new here? Trying to find some trends within that is what our PBIS team is diving into next.
All right. I would like to thank Dawn and Lindsay and Anna because they kind of queued up a lot of this information that I'll share, but I also see this is sort of a segue into what Rome Corners will share at the next session. And so I'm kind of always the odd child when we serve a variety of kids with developmental needs and ages and stages, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So the other thing that I find interesting as we move into that next slide is we all have sort of a shared commitment to what we're doing, but we all interpret it a bit differently in how we serve our kids. And so you'll hear some things similar to what Dawn said, similar to Anna and Lindsay in the weeks or 2 weeks ago or so, but our own twist here at Forest Edge. I'm overall excited to share that when we looked at our goal work from last year with a 5% growth for all students and a focus on 7% growth for students that are typically marginalized, we knocked it out of the park with all kids when the whole group was put together at 7% growth and proficiency. So I would like to highlight that as a starting point because the things that we did that were FES specific really tie into that work. And so when I think about what we did specifically, Dawn spoke a little bit about the use of AIMSweb data, which was a big shift for us because we used to only look at readers, and I've been here a long time, only looked at readers who, how they were doing with their fluency and their comprehension. Now it's become so diagnostic that we can look at a student and really see what they need and how to deliver that skill. And so I think that really helped put us on track to our success with reading proficiency. Secondly, she spoke also about learning targets and teacher clarity and student clarity. We had a really good showing of that. Data will show that you need to hit about a 90% success rate of that in order to say, oh yeah, we did that. We came in at 84.3% last year of teachers using success criteria and learning targets effectively. So you'll hear how we shifted that going into this year. One big shift for us last year was to implement EL education at 6th grade. And I could probably talk about that all day, but it does create a continuum for all of our kids to get the same protocols, the same vocabulary, the same practice, the same model across all grade levels. And it builds from one grade to the next so that kids are picking up learning in a similar format all of their way through Forest Edge. Finally, our sense of belonging goal has remained and will remain. Our PBIS team, which is led by Michelle Minter, really did a gap analysis on where did we see us needing more work, and it still comes back to sense of belonging. The highlight of maybe my year last year and maybe a big highlight from my career as a whole was our Marigold Night last year, which was really grounded in creating a strong sense of belonging. We had our students come. We have students from literally all over the world, and their families highlighted food, music, and art events tied under the theme of marigold flowers. And that was really led by our EL team. And the turnout was unbelievable. We had food from around the world. We had just an amazing night, and the turnout for all families was outstanding. So I'm going to put that plug in now. We're planning for this spring. If you can make it, you will be filled with joy. The other thing that we talk about with sense of belonging is using our big kids to lead our little kids. And there are several opportunities for 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade to support our younger kids. And I think that creates that theme of our school. While it's 7 years of kids, we are also very lucky to have those kids for 7 years, because I think we can make a real dent in how kids feel about school and how they have positive impact on their experiences. On the next slide, we slip to data, and I want to draw your attention to three main things, maybe four. The first one is that kind of stood out in my mind. When I looked at our percentage of white students, I thought, hey, that's not correct. But when I dug a little bit deeper, I found that our K-1 students really are coming in at 40 and 50% students that are non-white, which really creates such a rich experience with heritage, culture, language, all the things that we want our kids exposed to. So you're going to see that demographic change over time. And when we factor in the whole school, you'll see a different number, more like maybe 69 or 70%. So this only reflects grades 2-6 based on who does what testing when. And when I look at that, my second thing that really came to mind was looking at that EL growth of those students who speak languages. And I want to not assume that it's all Spanish. We had a little girl move in from Belarus last year. I had to look up where that even was. And it's been fun to watch a journey of a student speaking zero English in a language that no one else spoke. And now that kid, boy, she'll talk your ear off in whatever language you choose. The other thing that kind of blows my mind about students that are coming in with a different home language is then they learn Spanish, not through their first language, but through their second language of English. And I probably brought that up last year, but I just see it more and more when our kids are moving in from countries overseas. And that's exciting to me. And I wish my little friend here was here to show what success can look like when she's given the right tools to learn a language. The third thing I would draw your attention to is special ed still shows a gap, but it's an improving gap. And we've shifted a lot from pull-out instruction into push-in instruction, where we really have a belief that if you are a 5th grader, you're not going to grow in your 5th grade skills unless you're exposed to that 5th grade curriculum. Insert whatever grade you'd like. So we've really worked to protect that time with math large group instruction and literacy large group instruction so that kids are only pulled out for a portion, if needed, based on skill-specific information that a kid would need for their recipe for success. Likewise, I would look at the forward reading proficiency. We continue to shine there, and we feel really excited about the state report cards that are going to be coming out, I think, this week for public consumption. If we go to the next, it's more data, but I couldn't help but notice how parallel almost those lines start becoming. And when I look at sort of that dip in 22, 23, that's about the time we started using Bridges, EL curriculum. And what's interesting is you see a steady growth up, which supports the cause for the idea that we moved to it and brought it on in 6th grade as well. So I think we've perfected a lot of implementation. We have it rolling now in a way that kids understand it, students understand it, and you can see the data kind of take off a bit from that 22-23 school year. It's also interesting how parallel it runs, to me suggesting that our curriculum is working because both measures show something fairly similar. And one wondering I always have, and I always like to bring this to your attention, is we have really unique enrollments. We're not enrolling kids from Stoughton and Belleville and Verona, insert whatever Dane County school you might think of. We have kids coming, like I said, from all around the world. In fact, we have a new child starting from Nicaragua, hopefully tomorrow, just waiting on that to finalize, and kids from not only that, but across the United States. A lot of families move here because one or both parents are working with the university or Spectrum or Epic. And so they come to a neighborhood where there's plenty of housing and really have been happy with our schools. So my wondering becomes, boy, how do we get kids onboarded to the curriculum we use, because it is so drastically different from what they may have come from, and how to unify that practice so that everyone can take off and just grow with their achievement. When I look at the SEL data, boy, it's fairly consistent from last year. And I had a head scratcher today, so I called my friend Erica over at the district office. And when I saw that 20th percentile from the national rankings and valuing of school, that was sort of a startling statistic. But she told me we are now mixed in with all other elementaries, all other schools versus just grade bands. And so it doesn't feel good, but I think that's a place to grow. That 66% of our kids, grades 3-5, saw that as a concern, I guess I would say. And I think we need to do a better job of telling kids like what curriculum we're doing and where it will serve you later on in life. However, I also would like to point out that, boy, we've got a 3-5 data set. And then the next slide, when we get there in a moment, will be a grade 6, because grade 6 is mixed in with middle schoolers. And so while the data might be a little more alarming in the next page, it is showing a small group of students, like 65 kids. So the data can be swayed statistically by either, a few kids voting favorably or negatively and how they were feeling that day. We are continuing with that sense of belonging, and we've made a concerted effort and have had a little growth in that, and we know that we have to continue to do that. So you'll see then on the next slide where it goes into the 6th grade group, and they're grouped in with middle schoolers. And boy, if you know anything about 6th grade, they are emerging middle schoolers, and they are very different from maybe your little elementary counterparts. They're really trying to figure out where they fit in the world and who they are, who their friends are. All their social world gets kind of shaken up at 6th grade, and people start making different friend groups, new friend groups, and so on. So that's really important to factor into this. And as a result, we need to really stick to that sense of belonging so that we meet them where they are and make sure they know they're included. And hats off to Michelle and her team, because they continue to use that data to make their decisions on programs they use. We have an assembly, I think it's this Friday actually, about being different is awesome, and it's a local author who's differently abled, and he's going to come share his story in the spirit of we're all different, but we all have great things to share. When I look into moving forward, this is my most exciting page. As you'll see, it's like really color coded because I got really excited. My biggest emphasis on everything on that page is that we've really shifted to some fantastic teacher leadership. Our leadership team, our PBIS team, they are just really leading the cause and spreading that to everyone, which creates a really strong sense of collective efficacy. With our PLC activator training, the first one up there, all of our leadership team reps have now officially, as of about 2 weeks ago, been trained in facilitation through various models, depending on which training they wanted to go to. And they have taken that from our instructional coach who was leading 7, 8, 9, 10 meetings a week around student data, student information, student learning, and what we're going to do with that. And it's shifted over to our teachers. And that has been really powerful to watch them develop their craft and deliver that work in a way that makes sense to their team. When I look at curriculum with integrity, boy, this was really a strong word choice. You know, I struggled with the word fidelity and making sure we're doing our curriculum as designed. And leadership team really talked me to integrity, doing what you need to do with the information in front of you. We've tried to instill the idea that teachers often, for the best reasons, will say, oh, I don't know if that's that important. You know, the lesson on day 3 with, you know, module 4. But it is important because one thing leads to another. And if people are skipping out of lessons or changing the design, then the next grade is who suffers. And so we've really tried to put some pairings together where people can talk to one another and say, oh, I teach 4th grade. What is a 3rd grader coming to me with? I teach 5th grade. What am I sending them to with 6th grade? And so we've talked about really doing that service for kids. We have them for 7 years, and we owe that curriculum that was designed and selected by our team to do that well and to really have some integrity in knowing you're doing your very best work with that. And you'll probably hear more about that in the year to come. We've really shifted our walkthrough practice. This is exciting data. Last year, I could not convince people to join me on those walkthroughs, and they were the most joyous time because you not only saw great things and how all teachers kind of design their classroom. I had 1% of my team do them last year. This year, it's only November, and we have had 35% of our certified staff taking part in it. And we've shifted from, we felt pretty good about that 84.3% of teachers using learning targets and success criteria, that we've really shifted into discussions with kids. And of course, that was probably much more appealing to people to get on board and go talk to, you know, the little people about what they're learning and why. And it shifted from, like what Dawn was saying, I don't know, my teacher told me, to, gosh, well, in case I ever plant a garden, I need to know the area I have and the space I have. You know, kids really applying their knowledge. Right now, we hit at about 55% of kids being able to tell us what they're learning and why, and we would anticipate that number growing as we perfect that skill. But the best PD is always right down the hallway. So having teachers go into rooms and talk to kids is opening us up for collaborative classroom visits. To be able to say, well, Mr. Jones does really great with classroom management. Who wants to learn about that? Let's take a team in. Mrs. Smith does a great job with literacy instruction. Who wants to learn about that? Let's take a team and go in. So we're shifting to a larger practice, and that walkthrough practice has set the foundation for that. Finally, focus on sense of belonging. I have talked about that a little bit already through everything, but one highlight really came from our PD day 2 weeks ago or so. We had a team of student services, it was me, student services, a couple rotations teachers, and just by happenstance, a 5th grade teacher who's really known for his connections with kids. And we looked at panorama data, school perceptions data, and we looked at that K2 data that we just compiled for fall. And we really had some stark discoveries and really got our attention on the data that came out, because it wasn't always the kids we thought it might be that were not feeling connected to school or didn't feel like they had a friend to play with at recess. They weren't the kids that we predicted might not have an adult to talk to. So we've really, really looked into that subgroup of kids, and the rotations team in their PLC, which is very difficult to plan for because they're all teaching different topics, so it's hard to bring curriculum to the table when you might be music or art or Phi-Ed. They are kind of grounding themselves in who are these kids and how can we serve them better. And so I think that exemplifies that whole child emphasis. They're the people that see kids all day, every day, all grades. They're the people that know how to make connections, and they're going to make a dent in that data for that, I am sure. I guess I would just close my portion by saying, the excitement of all this, really, I can't underscore enough the teacher leadership at our building. In 5 years, we've shifted from being strangers who don't know each other very well and taking in different, feelings of I came from Netherwood or Prairie View or Brooklyn or Rome Corners or even the middle school. And now we've really created identity where we are building something together that's pretty magical. And so I just really give a credit to the whole team because they're the ones doing the work and making the magic.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dawn and Carrie. Questions from board members? Comments? Mary, go ahead.
Thank you. That was really wonderful to hear. I think I have one question for each of you. So, Dawn, you talked about shifting focus away from emotional regulation and toward a sense of belonging. And I'm wondering, I had noticed in the data table that school safety, the sense of school safety was pretty low. Do you think that the shift to sense of belonging will improve that as well?
I think so, because when we think about students being disrespectful to each other, I think that can be like a sense of belonging piece, right? If someone's making fun of you for something or not like disrespecting you in some way, I think that will help us figure out like that sense of belonging piece. So yeah, I think we have to just look a little bit more at the data.
Okay, all right. And then, Carrie, I was wondering, you made the point of, let's see, from the EL, the line graphs, and the fact that FES started below state standards and then has consistently increased. And I'm wondering, so the EL curriculum, was that implemented, was that 3 years ago?
3 years ago was the pilot. We had several grade levels piloting, maybe 4 years ago now. We had piloting, and then we've had full implementation at least 2 years until sixth grade hopped on board this year. 6-8 also started that. And it's very engaging, I guess I would say, because it's real life topics for the big lesson and then very skills specific. If you're K3, you have skills block, and then you have all block, which is similar for the bigger kids, where it's looking at what do kids need to perfect that skill, get that talent, have that ability, no matter what skill they need. Teachers are really delivering what each kid needs during that specific time.
So then would you anticipate, as the kids are bathed within that curriculum for more years, will it be additive, like further?
100%.
Okay.
And some of the systems that are set up in EL for how to deliver instruction, how to turn and talk, how to engage in conversation are not only great life skills, but our rotations teams also looked at some of those same practices to use in their classrooms. So kids are getting that in more than one place. And I think that will also contribute to the idea of what we do as meaning outside of the classroom. So we're not just learning because we're here from 7:50 to 2:50. This applies elsewhere in my world. I do think the trend will go up. I'm a fan of the curriculum. It was a hard setup out of the beginning because it was so much learning and so different from what we had done before, that now that we're very engrossed in it, and like you said, bathed in it, and I like that, I think we're only going to see it go up because kids know what to expect. We had a years where the expectation was to get through the first 3 modules as you were learning. The expectation now is to get through all 4 modules, which will only set you up for success as you matriculate up through the system.
Got it. Thank you both.
Thank you both for this wonderful presentation. I appreciate it. I have a couple of questions, and some of them are going to kind of be both of you, and some of them will be just one or the other. But Dawn, you were talking about using PLCs as part of Act 20 and going through and talking about the who benefited and who did not, and rotating those questions around so that some of that's going on. And I'm curious about this from a perspective of what's going to happen in January, right? So how long are your current PLCs? How much time are you spending per PLC? And Carrie, you can answer this too, because I'm sure it's going on in Forest Edge as well.
It would be about 50 minutes. So our rotations are 60 minutes, but by the time you take your students, stop at the
Sure.
bathroom, get a drink, pick them up. So about 50 minutes.
So it won't be gaining too much time
No,
for
about
that. It'll
about
just be
10
more
minutes.
consistent as far as like time frame of when it's happening.
Yep. I think sometimes though our specialists are late to the table. If it's a case manager, they may be following up on a student behavior or contacting a family member, and so it might make them late to the meeting. So with not having students in the building before, we'll be able to just everyone will be able to be at the table at the same time, which will be great.
Okay.
Or
Perfect.
leaving right for a behavior also. That can be also some of the times where we want everyone there, but then maybe there's a student in crisis and someone needs to leave. So it would be really good that without students there, everybody will be able to be fully present the whole time.
Awesome.
The other thing I would add is it gives the opportunity for reading intervention or math intervention or multilingual. When they're spread across 7 grades, they don't always have prep that aligns with the 3rd grade PLC. This allows that time for a team to speak up and say, we'd love you to join ours this time. We have a question about Susie, Mary, Tommy, insert whatever name. So we're very similar, except 5th and 6th grade have 40-minute rotations. So they have literally on my calendar, it'll be PLC 1, PLC 2, because they find the work so valuable. They want the whole 80 minutes and meet in 2 different distinct times in the day.
And then, so both of you talked about relevance and the valuing of school. And so I'm wondering, because this seems to be a theme, not just at your 2 schools, but throughout, we're seeing a lower amounts. And I'm wondering what specifically you are doing, planning for the future to help grow that.
When we did the relevance PD, we walked into classrooms we did it, I think on a Friday or Thursday or Friday, went back into the classroom and teachers literally had a slide that was like, why this is relevant, and actually very explicit instruction with kids. And it was just, and teachers absolutely loved it, because I think sometimes you miss that, right? There's a lot of curriculum to get through and you're like, go, go, go. But actually to be like, this is actually how it applies to my life or your life or a future lesson or a past lesson. And so we just putting that why this is important slide made a huge difference with our learners.
We've added it as a walkthrough question too. So why do you think you're learning? Where might you use that? And more we're hearing kids be able to articulate that. And so even having us ask them, I think creates some importance to them. Like, oh, she's going to ask me this. I better zip, be on it. So it's interesting to hear and see that percentile or that percentage rank grow as we continue to talk to kids. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much for your presentation, and thanks for your leadership and for your team's leadership and commitment to all of the advances that we see here. And I've enjoyed every one of the series that we've been going through. And so forgive me if I missed this broader point. So if you're like, yeah, Nathan, we already covered that, you can say that. Do you see anything interesting when you start to peel back and look at the data and slice it across all grade levels, across buildings? Because I think what you're showing here is per building and your success, but I know you have different grade levels across, and is that a potential thing to bring back and share with us across, hey, here's how this worked here, and here's how we could carry it forward over there?
We just talked about this a little bit today, and that we are looking for ways to do cross-building work because our sub shortages are significant. And so I have teachers begging to say, oh, you had great data at this grade level. What are they doing? My 1st grade team last year saw some growth from what Netherwood was doing, and we were able to pull subs out of the sky, and they were able to go travel there and watch their instruction for the morning. And again, that best PD just down the hall, they came back fired up and excited. And they know that I would say, if you come back from any learning ready to hit the floor running in your classroom again, that is money in the bank. And so I think we need to find systems down the road that we can do that more, because I think we are very cognizant of the data at each building and where they're finding success.
I like how you say that, right? It's sometimes next door, right? I mean, it's like we have a lot of our own answers, our own insights, and our knowledge of what is successful and working well. How do we continue to spread and capitalize on that? So thanks so much. Appreciate
I
it.
think with the first couple years of EL, teachers are just getting comfortable with it. So you don't want anyone to come in. And even the beginning of walkthroughs in the fall of last year, we're a little like, oh, are you observing me? Are you going to like score me? Like, is this evaluative? And it's like, no. And so that trust is being built. And now we've come so far since last year. But I think now there's more opportunities, the more comfortable we are with the curriculum, visiting other schools and having more conversations just about the data and not having to take that personally. So we had an administrative team meeting this afternoon to talk more about how can we look at data mid-year and look at like what's working well for a grade level, what are they doing, and what can we, how can we spread that to other schools?
It's just funny you asked when we've just talked about this.
Yeah, echoing everybody's thanks and kudos. Overwhelmingly positive information. I guess I will, so we got the positives first. Right now I'm just going to go to maybe challenges or opportunities. So Carrie, you do an amazing job having K through 6, right? And I want to give a shout out especially to rotation teachers. I think about Ms. Delasto, who teaches art, is teaching art to kindergartners and 6th graders. And that is a huge swing of ages and content. Talk to us a little bit about challenges, right? It's great to have bigger kids helping little kids, but what are some challenges and potential down the road issues given that it's K through 6?
For me, it is so great in theory in all the things you just mentioned. What the challenge becomes is, and maybe you've heard me say this before, is we're running 2 schools under one roof. We are running 2 schedules, 2 systems. So it's not just the challenge of, and thank goodness our rotations teachers are magical, wonderful. They acclimate beautifully. But that is a real art. And we found that when we did walkthroughs, we had some teachers that only work with big kids that said, I don't know how to talk to a kindergartner. And conversely, people that work with little kids were a little timid around the 6th graders. I'm like, really? They're awesome. And so some of the challenges are in staffing. As we grow, we're almost to the point of having to go to 2 art teachers, 2 Spanish teachers. Well, actually, we have a Spanish teacher and a half and a PE teacher and a half because of how often we offer those classes. But we'd have to go to the point of having 2 music teachers. Right now in our space, we've been pretty consistent with 3 teachers per grade level. But the minute we go more, we start jeopardizing other programming we can have for kids based on space constraint and staffing constraints. We're at a beautiful point right now. I think we're at like 462 kids. And I know we can go to 600, but that's when we're all in a condensed kind of configuration where we don't have to have 2 systems under one roof. So we are always trying to match what Rome Corners is doing. We are always trying to match what my friends at the elementary are doing. And so it's a struggle. I actually love it. And I laugh that we used to think about, well, what if we built a K-8 school? Oh, gosh, no. And so the good outweighs the bad, but there are some serious considerations going forward as we do grow. We have several classes that are over the guidelines right now for sizes. And so that's just a sign of things to come. And anybody who's come to Forest Edge to those events, Marigold event in the spring, please be there. Anybody who comes to those will see that families come with toddlers and strollers. You would not believe the little people that come to drop off and think they want to come with big sister or big brother. And so we know that those little people are coming, and we just need to be prepared for that and how we might have to adjust our system and really just be one school under one roof.
Thank you very much. Awesome information. I just wanted to make the comment. I really appreciated hearing both of you speak to the work that you're doing with PLCs to make that as effective as it can be starting now to I guess build the bench, if you will, on what that's going to look like come January. So I just appreciate the intentional work in that area, because it's just laying that groundwork for the incredible work that's going to be available when that time is devoted without kids in the school. So just appreciate that focus. So thank you.
I'll just say congratulations to you both on a very successful year last year, and really appreciate how you're always pushing for greater results, always looking at the data to find those areas of growth. So yeah, congratulations, and thanks for a great presentation tonight. All right, back to Dr. Bergstrom for federal and state legislative update, I think.
Absolutely. I'll be brief on this, but as many of you know, Governor Evers signed Senate Bill 2, Assembly Bill 29, related to restricting the use of cell phones during instruction time into law at the end of October. And this new act requires all public school districts to adopt policies that prohibit students from using personal wireless devices during instructional time. And Wisconsin's bipartisan passage of this makes us the 36th state to do so. And of course, the board was forward-thinking and it already passed this policy. Our policy meets and exceeds the requirements that the state government put down, but knowing how relevant that was to all of us, I wanted to make sure we discussed it today. Now, we have a few district highlights to share with you that I think will be kind of fun. And the first one is celebrating our school district school psychologists. So last week was National School Psychology Week, and we really loved celebrating these amazing practitioners. They play a really essential role in our students' academic and social emotional well-being. So many thanks to them. They are really, they're people we're very, very proud to work with. This is an example of our October professional development. A lot of great things were happening on that day. But this one, the examples here were our school district student services team. They engaged in a special session with Kelly Petrie from the Maitrey Center for Mindful Living. Those of you may have seen that storefront in downtown Oregon. They learned about and experienced mindful awareness practices, tools, and activities that were adaptable for multiple grade levels. They also learned about a practical framework for structuring mindfulness lessons for students in a way that's engaging and accessible. So we really love when teachers are learning something that they can turn around right away and make the difference for some kids. And this, I don't know if this could be cuter. This is the Brooklyn Kindergarten Movie Drive-In, and I think this has been a quite long-standing tradition, so if any of you had Brooklyn kiddos, you probably remember this. It's in their first language arts module, but I do think it's been a tradition for a while. They discovered that imagination can make everything more fun, so absolutely. So with the help from their families, students designed and built homemade vehicles, then proudly paraded their creations through the hall. And their final stop was a cozy drive-in movie, just like the ones they've read about in the olden days. In Prairie View, they had a fun dance party. They earned their possum tickets when they're safe, respectful, and responsible. And this past week, our all-school possum tickets jar was full. So Prairie View got to have an epic all-school dance party in the hallway with music on the loudspeaker before the long weekend. This is so cute. Way to go, Prairie View students, for filling up your entire possum tickets jar. And then Brooklyn had a fall garden cleanup. They came together to clean up all of the gardens outside. It was Brooklyn classes and volunteers, got the garden ready for winter, and they're working on an overhaul to bring our gardens back to life. So they're thinking even about what they're going to plant next spring. And Miss Gillespie, a retired Brooklyn second grade teacher, joined all of them to teach the kids about important and fun information about gardening. That's really nice of Miss Gillespie to come back and do that. And then look at these Oregon band students. They recently participated in the Sun Prairie Middle Level Honors Band. The purpose of the Honor Band is to provide students in the area with a collaborative opportunity and a chance to perform challenging music. The ensemble is a collection of exemplary musicians in 7th and 8th grade. So this year's clinician was Cheryl Miracle from the Glendale River Valley Public Schools. She's conducted many ensembles, including UW Whitewater Band Camp, and she's taught private horn lessons and is currently the band coordinator for WSMA Middle Level State Honors Band. So the kids had quite an experience and a cool t-shirt. And then we had our high school construction project. They're making really great progress on the house, as you can see. This is such a valuable hands-on learning experience. They get so many opportunities to build skills. They also have the chance to work alongside trade professionals, such as the plumbers from Dave Jones, who were recently on site to prepare the basement for pipe installation. So you can see, look at the kids standing in the gravel in the basement as part of the whole pipe piece. That is so cool. And then we had a recent podcast that featured all the ways that we work together to help feed our school community. And that's it for tonight.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Bergstrom. So next up, we're going to move to our work session on the cell phone policy. So we will take a 5-minute recess and we'll reconvene in the small conference room next door. And just a reminder to anyone in the audience, that is an open meeting, and we welcome anyone in attendance to join us. Thank you.